So this is just to give you a little bit of a background, and I know this is the case in wherever you're from. I know this is the case in many places. This is just to give you a bit of a sense of the state, the mental state of men and women in New South Wales prisons. This particular work has not been done for every state in Australia, so I can't show you across the board, but there is no reason to think that it's a lot different. Although Victoria is doing better, as you heard, on everything. This is the dark orange is women, the dark yellow is men, and the light yellow is the general Australian population. So this was a measure against a standard mental health assessment that is done across Australia and was done for people in prison, and you can see that the overrepresentation of mental health disorders, alcohol and other drug issues, any mental health episode in the past 12 months, psychosis, depression, personality disorder, anxiety disorder. So you can see the high overrepresentation of people being held in prisons compared with the general population. Now I have to say, I know that prison itself causes mental illness, but the very interesting thing is that, in fact, when they give these measures to people coming in on remand or just being admitted, the level of mental health disorders are higher for those coming in. And of course a lot of that is about anxiety, about the police, but a lot of people are coming in literally having, in a state of psychosis where they should be, of course, being assisted in the community. The most recent mental health survey, and this sort of feeds into the work that we're doing on the increase in the prison population, indicates quite clearly that the rate is going up. I haven't got a diagram for that yet because literally this was just released a month or two ago, but it shows increasing levels over the past 14 years, and that the increase is largely due to an increase in men's health disorders. Cognitive disability. By cognitive disability, I'm referring to every form of cognitive impairment, and that might be, I don't know how many of you are aware of what is the DSM-4, but that is under 70 IQ, and there are two other measures of social inability, which are used by psychiatrists, psychologists to deem whether someone has intellectual disability, and that must be before age 18. So there is, so that's included, but also a very high rate in prisons of people with acquired brain injury, and a very high rate of people with borderline intellectual disability, that is between 70 and 80. Just want to remind you that I did say earlier, and I acknowledge that very strongly, and this is one of the things that another project I'm looking at, is that the way we measure these things, of course, is seriously problematic, and it's particularly seriously problematic for Aboriginal persons, for persons of non-English speaking background. All those things aside, there is clearly a much higher rate of people with cognitive disability in our prison systems. DJJ is juvenile justice, so the most recent measures there indicate that 74% of juveniles held in New South Wales juvenile detention are below the average range of intellectual functioning, compared to 25% when measured against the standardised sample in the community. In the adult prisons, it's very hard, very hard. There has really been no proper measurement, but there clearly is an intellectual disability and borderline intellectual disability overrepresentation. Some recent work done in the UK pushes us on that. One of the indications seems to have been around 84 IQ as an average in a group of UK prisons. So cognitive functioning is a serious problem for many. But these figures are misleading for many reasons, but for one reason, being that the real story lies with the increasing level of complex needs, that is, of multiple diagnoses, that is, people with cognitive disorder, disability, mental health disorder, alcohol and other drug issue, coming together with their disadvantage, and that has been increasing in our prison population. I'm just going to very briefly give you a few slides on some of the results of a project which I'm feeding into this, which is Pathways into the criminal justice system for these groups of people. And it's a very detailed institutional pathway. I'm looking at all the institutions that these very large, 2,700 odd people have taken from the earliest time we can see them at school education, at child protection, right through to all of their interactions with police. And the evidence is quite clearly that this, and this brings us back to the social justice, it's inequitable life chances, policies, practices, opportunities and capabilities. So out of this, it's quite clear that persons with the complex cognitive disability, which in my study is more than half, are significantly more likely to have earlier contact with police, more police episodes, more episodes through life with police, more short and remand prison episodes, significantly more in all of those areas than those with a single or no diagnosis. It doesn't mean that those with a single or no diagnosis should be ignored. I guess I'm just pointing out how important it is that we recognise this very high and ongoing contact for this group. That they have significantly higher offences, convictions, imprisonments, that their offences are 90% low-level offences. So, someone else mentioned the other day, vehicle and traffic offences is the highest area that they get caught on. That is often driving without a licence, failing to pay fines, minor assault, and the fastest area of growth is breaching, parole, and so on for this group. This group, you know, this involvement shows significantly poorer school education than any of the other groups. Virtually none of them finished school, had anything when they left school. And although there have been some strong supports, say from housing and legal aid, these do not stop these people going into prison. Aboriginal women are the most marginalised and the highest level of complex needs in this group. Just one thing which is interesting, which shows that a community or a social response is beneficial, is that we have good comparison. A significant number of the people who became clients of the Disability Service only became clients and were only recognised after they went to prison. So we can see a comparison. They significantly dropped in their offences, their contact with police and so on, and are moving out of the criminal justice system. All of this is connected with what we discussed earlier. That is the colonial patriarchy which sets this up, the impact of toughening police and sentencing regimes that Chris mentioned, and deinstitutionalisation. I just want to finish with some sort of theoretical things are arising out of this. It's quite clear that this group is institutionally funneled into this liminal, marginalised community justice space. This is a space which isn't fully in the community and it's not fully in the prison. That it's a space in which they have never participated in mainstream community. It's a space that includes institutional child protection, services, police, juvenile justice, prisons, community corrections, hospitals, rehabilitation units, and this engenders abuse and homelessness and keeps them in this space. But this is a space which has been created and driven institutionally by the patriarchal colonial policies that Australia has had since the invasion. And it sets up this cascade of exclusions for poor disadvantaged persons who have failed to meet the middle class norms of education and behaviour and social acceptance, because these norms are not actually embedded in this liminal space. They've never experienced that. So it really does bring into question many of the things that are around, I think, in our current criminology thinking. talking about the usefulness of through care approaches for post-release assistance for this group, and it brings into question, I think, desistance thinking for this group, because it doesn't, desistance is actually desistance from being in that space for most of these people. So this marginal space itself is the offence against those in it. So desistance could be reconceptualised as one in which the state and social agency processes should desist from collaborating and creating marginal space that these people with disabilities end up in from an early age. So this really brings us back to that, the beginning of critical social justice analysis, critical criminology, of saying this is really where we have to head if this group of people, this large group of people, is not going to continue to end up in prison.